I have a question. How do you feel about the government intervening to build, for example, transportation infrastructure like the national highway system?
Well, I believe that all property should be private and all construction and all business should be private. So I'm very much against the government taxing us in order to build large transportation systems. You could argue that of all the things that they do, this might be the least offensive, but then it's hard to tell what would have come about if we were truly free.
But doesn't it make the economy explode, and doesn't that help businesses?
Not necessarily, or not, I would argue no. But it's complicated because I can't run a parallel universe here where they didn't do it. So you have to think in principles. Government intervention destroys. It destroys wealth. It destroys production. Now, how did it destroy it with the highway system? I don't know all the details about this, but government regulation basically throughout the 19th century and early 20th century, the first industry, by the way, in the United States to be regulated was the railroad industry. And then the first industry to have antitrust really go after was the railroad industry. So the railroad industry was heavily regulated and really devastated, really driven into bankruptcy. It's no accident Atlas Shrugged is about railroads, because the government was destroying that industry throughout the early part of the 20th century. So there was a real transportation problem in the United States. Not because there was a real transportation problem in the United States, but because the government had created a real transportation problem in the United States. If you had had private railroads, real railroads, then who knows what would have happened? I don't know. You might have had bullet trains going across the country. You might have had massive new trains that could, instead of these containers on these monster trucks that are driving up and down the highways, and that are a real problem if you drive up and down the highways, you would have had massive rail lines. Who knows? I don't know. But there would have been a market solution. And by the way, the highways were primarily built in order to transport freight. They were primarily built for trucks. But why did we need trucks? Because we destroyed the railroads. So we needed trucks. So let's steal a bunch of billions of dollars from the American people and build highways. And there are lots of unintended consequences of building highways, on the way cities are structured, on where we live, on how we live. I mean, who knows what would have happened if they hadn't built the highways and they'd left business alone, what would have come about. Not to mention the fact that if there was really a need for highways in order to transport goods, then there's a selfish incentive for some businessmen to build them. Put a little monitor on trucks and let the trucking industry pay for these highways. So highways would have been built if there was a real economic reason to build them. So there is no conceivable, to me, no conceivable role for government to play in any type of business, in any type of construction, in any type of making business more efficient. Leave people alone. They find solutions that, who would have thought of the internet? Who would have come up with that? You left it to the market, and the market made it happen. Who would have thought of iPods? Things happen that you would have never expected in terms of the solutions to problems. But unfortunately, we live in a world where you can't run the experiment on the side. But again, go back to the 19th century, go back to every unregulated industry and see the kind of innovation, the kind of success individual businesses have had without government intervention, and see the corrupting and the destructive influence of government when it has intervened.